They smiled in my face, called me brother, and then tried to erase me from my own invention. But what they didn't know was that I had already filed the patent just days before their betrayal. I wasn't born a genius. I wasn't even the top of my class. But I've always been the kind of guy who couldn't let go of a problem once it latched onto my brain. My friends used to joke that I could lose sleep over a broken toaster. And maybe they were right. Because this invention, the one they tried to steal, started with a broken fan in my tiny apartment. It was the middle of summer, the kind of heat that melts your patience. My ceiling fan sputtered, groaned, and died. Most people would have gone to the store and bought a new one. I opened it up and stared at its insides like it had just insulted me. That night, with tools scattered across my floor and sweat dripping down my back, I started sketching an idea that had nothing to do with the fan anymore. What if small home appliances could regulate their own power output based on environmental feedback? A self-learning microadaptive chip, compact, efficient, and cheap to produce. I didn't sleep that night. I barely noticed the sun come up. For weeks, I lived off caffeine, instant noodles, and the high that comes with chasing an idea that feels like it could change something. I'd come home from my day job, lock the door, and dive into my notes like a madman. It was messy, half-formed, and totally mine. The more I worked, the more real it became. But it was also lonely. That's when I started thinking maybe I needed help. Not just with development, I was a one-man army with no funding, but also with feedback, maybe even moral support. I had a couple of friends from college who were into tech. We'd kept in touch loosely over the years, mostly sharing project updates and dream-big ideas that never went anywhere. One night, after a few beers and too many what-ifs in my head, I picked up the phone and called them. I told them about the chip. Not all the details, just enough to catch their interest. They were excited, genuinely so, or at least that's how it seemed at the time. Looking back, that call was the first move in a game I didn't realize I was playing. I still remember the way their voices lit up over the phone. Liam, always the smooth talker, said, "Man, this could be huge." And Aaron, the quieter one, the brains between us back in college, asked questions, real ones. The kind only someone who cared would ask. That night we stayed on the call for hours. I laid out my vision, the adaptive chip, the real-time learning loop, the potential for integration into thousands of low-end devices. They asked for schematics, test results, all the messy stuff I'd been hoarding in notebooks and folders. At first, I hesitated. This thing was personal, raw, but they were my friends. We debuilt code together in dorm rooms and failed startup pitches over ramen. If I couldn't trust them, who could I trust? Within a few days, they were fully on board. Liam had some industry contacts, and Aaron had access to a prototyping lab through his work. We agreed casually, maybe too casually, to work together. No contracts, no lawyers, just three guys chasing something great. "We'll figure out the details later," Liam had said with a laugh. I laughed too, stupidly. At first, everything clicked. We'd meet on video calls every night after work, bouncing ideas back and forth like the old days. Aaron streamlined my code. Liam mocked up presentations for potential partners. They brought structure to the chaos I'd been drowning in. It felt like a dream. But small things started to feel off. One night, I noticed a document had been edited without my name on it, just theirs. When I brought it up, Liam brushed it off. "Just a placeholder, bro. You know you're the heart of this thing." I wanted to believe him. I did believe him. I didn't want to be paranoid. We were building something amazing. I told myself the weird feelings were just nerves, the kind that come with doing something real for the first time. But still, I started backing up everything. Quietly, thoroughly, not because I didn't trust them, at least that's what I told myself. Looking back, I think some part of me already knew. That trust, once broken, doesn't snap all at once. It frays slowly, quietly, until you're standing in the wreckage, wondering how you didn't see it coming. The following weeks were electric. Every night we were deep in design calls, sharing screens, tweaking code, and arguing over components like it actually mattered, because this time it did. We weren't just talking about building something cool. We were building something that worked. The first time our prototype chip responded in real time to temperature fluctuations, I literally jumped out of my chair. It was like watching your kid take their first steps. Not perfect, jittery, unpredictable, but it worked. Aaron fist-pumped on the screen. Liam cracked open a beer and toasted us through the camera. It was a small win, but it felt massive. Momentum built fast. Liam pulled in a buddy of his who worked at a hardware startup just for feedback. They were impressed. Said if we could stabilize the learning algorithm, we might be looking at something scalable. Words like seed funding and licensing deals started floating around. I tried not to let it get to my head, but I'm not going to lie, I let myself dream. There were nights I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking, what if this is it? What if this was the thing that finally changed everything? I didn't grow up with much. My dad worked 2 jobs until his back gave out. I wasn't doing this to get rich, I was doing it to prove I could, that I could build something meaningful, something that mattered. But even in all that excitement, the shadows kept creeping in. Aaron started working more offline. He'd say he was just testing on his own time, no big deal. But when I asked for his updated code, he'd always say, still refining it. Liam grew more focused on meetings and pitches, less on the tech. He'd say, don't worry about the business side, just keep building. But I wanted to worry. This was my invention, my idea. Still, I kept pushing forward. I didn't want to be the paranoid guy who ruined everything with doubts. We were finally getting somewhere. And if I kept my head down, stayed focused, and pushed through, maybe things would work out the way they were supposed to. But gut feelings don't lie, and mine had started whispering something I couldn't ignore for much longer. It started with a typo. Funny how something so small can unravel everything. I was cleaning up our shared folder one evening, something I did regularly because neither Aaron nor Liam were exactly organized, when I noticed a PDF with a weird file name. It wasn't labeled like our other files, just a random string of letters and numbers. I opened it out of curiosity, expecting another messy draft or maybe a corrupted export. But it wasn't that. It was a draft patent application. My idea, my diagrams, my language, I recognized whole paragraphs lifted directly from the notes I'd written months earlier. But at the top, listed under inventors, were only 2 names, Aaron and Liam. My name was nowhere. At first, I thought it had to be a mistake. Maybe it was a test version or something Liam was preparing for when we all filed together. I tried to believe that, I really did. But deep down, I knew this wasn't new. It wasn't rushed. It was dated almost 2 weeks ago. And they hadn't said a word. I sat there for a long time just staring at the screen. My ears were ringing. My chest felt hollow. I kept rereading it, hoping I'd somehow misunderstood. But there it was in black and white, they were filing without me. The betrayal hit like a punch to the ribs. These were the guys I'd trusted, the ones I'd let into my work, my dream. And now they were trying to cut me out like I was just another disposable coder. My first instinct was panic. I wanted to call them, scream, demand answers, but something stopped me. I don't know what, instinct maybe, or anger, but instead I opened a new tab and searched. How to file a provisional patent. I spent the next 48 hours buried in paperwork, formatting, rewriting descriptions, redrawing diagrams. Every document had to be airtight. Every timestamp had to prove this idea started with me. I didn't eat. I barely slept. But when I hit submit and saw the confirmation date stamped in the upper corner, I felt a strange mix of fury and relief. They thought they'd beaten me. What they didn't know was that I'd just filed mine 3 days before theirs. And suddenly, the race they tried to rig was one I'd already won. I stared at the patent confirmation email like it was a lifeline. The date, the time, the digital signature, it was all there. And just 3 days earlier than theirs. 3 days. That tiny sliver of time now stood between me and being erased from my own invention. I should have felt victorious, but I didn't. Not yet. What I felt was something closer to exhaustion and fear. Fear that it wouldn't be enough. That even with the truth on my side, they might still find a way to twist it. I didn't tell them what I'd done. Not yet. I needed time to prepare, time to process. I couldn't afford another misstep. I started documenting everything. Emails, call logs, my original sketches, file creation dates, even the timestamps on photos I'd taken of my early prototypes. I created backups of everything and stored them in the cloud, on a hard drive, even emailed copies to myself under a private account. Paranoia had become my survival instinct. Then came the call. Liam rang me up 2 days after I'd filed, casual, upbeat, like nothing had changed. "Hey man, we've been working on a little something behind the scenes," he said. "Big news coming soon, you're gonna love it." I remember gripping the phone tighter, trying to keep my voice steady. "What kind of news?" He chuckled. "You'll see, just trust us, all right." That word again, trust. After we hung up, I sat alone in my living room, lights off, laptop screen glowing in the dark. My invention sat on the table in front of me, a bundle of wires and silicon that had become the center of my world. I reached out and touched it gently, as if to remind myself this is yours. I wasn't stupid. I knew what was coming. They weren't just going to try and take credit, they were about to go public. Announce it, claim it. And when they did, they'd expect me to stay quiet, to roll over and let them walk off with everything I built. But I had a weapon now, the truth, and the proof to back it up. All I had to do was wait for them to make their move, because when they did, I'd be ready. It happened on a Monday. I was scrolling through my feed, half distracted, sipping my first coffee of the morning when I saw the headline. Breakthrough in microadaptive tech, startup duo files game-changing patent. My stomach dropped. I clicked the link, hands trembling. There they were, Liam and Aaron, standing side by side in a glossy press photo, all smiles and folded arms like some tech world dream team. The article called them visionaries, said they were poised to revolutionize the smart device industry. It described my invention in almost exact terms, dressed up in buzzwords and polished PR language. They mentioned the chip's potential, how it could change everything from fan efficiency to battery life. They even referenced real-time learning, something I'd poured months of sleepless nights into perfecting. But nowhere was my name. It was like I'd never existed. I sat frozen, reading every line over and over, waiting for the correction, the footnote, something. But there was nothing. Just the quiet buzz of my phone on the table, pinging with messages from old contacts. Did you see this? Weren't you working on something like this? Thought you were involved. Dude, what happened? What happened, they happened. I'd trusted them. I'd welcomed them into my world, opened up everything I had, and they'd used that access to bury me. And now the whole world was clapping for them while I was still sitting in the dark, stunned. But the shock didn't last long. It turned into anger, a sharp, bitter flame that burned away the self-doubt. I stood up, grabbed my notebook, and flipped it open. Page after page of dates, signatures, progress logs, even a voice memo I'd recorded on a random Tuesday months ago when the idea first came to me in the shower. I had everything. I had proof. And I'd filed first. They thought they could steal my work and get away with it because I wasn't loud, because I wasn't connected, because I didn't play dirty. But I didn't need to play dirty, I just needed to play smart. They had no idea the fire they'd lit in me, and they definitely didn't expect what was coming next. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was worried that part had passed, but because my mind was spinning, already mapping out my next move. I had something they didn't, the truth. But more importantly, I had legal priority. And in the world of patents, timing isn't just everything, it's the only thing. I spent the early morning hours triple-checking every document I'd filed. My provisional patent application was airtight. Every diagram had my signature. Every paragraph came from my original notes. The filing timestamp was clear. I had submitted mine 3 days before theirs. That detail alone made all the difference. By sunrise, I had already compiled everything into a zip folder, labeled it Original Patent Evidence, Confidential. Now came the hard part, exposing them. I reached out to a patent attorney I'd met once at a startup conference a year ago. We'd only spoken for 5 minutes, but I remembered how sharp she was. I emailed her everything. Within hours, she replied, "You have a very strong case. Let's talk immediately." She walked me through what would happen next. A patent dispute, a formal notice, potential litigation. I didn't love the idea of going to court, but I'd go there if I had to. The attorney was clear. My filing was first, and that meant my claim was legitimate. If Liam and Aaron tried to push forward with theirs, they'd not only be blocked, they could face consequences. The thought didn't make me feel triumphant. Not yet. What I felt was focus. A laser-sharp determination I hadn't known I was capable of. These guys hadn't just tried to steal an idea. They tried to rewrite the story of my life without me in it. And I wasn't going to let them. That same afternoon, I wrote an email, short, direct. I sent it to both of them. You filed a patent for something you knew wasn't yours. I have all the original records and a confirmed filing that predates yours by 3 days. I suggest you withdraw your application, quietly, before this gets legal. No threats, just facts. They didn't reply right away, but I knew they would, they had to. Because this wasn't about who had the better pitch or the louder voice anymore. This was about who had the truth, and I was holding it. It wasn't long before the replies started flooding in. First, Liam, his tone a strange mix of surprise and defensiveness. "Look, man, this has gotten out of hand. We didn't mean to cut you out. Maybe things got messy, but it's not like we stole your work." Aaron's message followed, cold, calculated. "If you want to drag this into court, be my guest, but you know the startup world isn't fair. Sometimes you have to play hardball." Reading their words felt like punches, not just because of the betrayal, but because of the arrogance behind them. They were trying to rewrite the story even now, to paint me as the troublemaker, the paranoid one. But I wasn't going to let them get away with it. I scheduled a video call, no lawyers, no witnesses. Just me, Liam, and Aaron. I needed to look them in the eye to confront what they'd done. When the call started, Liam's smile was tight, forced. Aaron's eyes were cold. I took a deep breath and laid it out plainly. I showed them my documents, the patent confirmation, the timelines. I watched their faces shift from confident to unsettled, then finally defensive. Liam tried to justify it. "We were under pressure. We thought you weren't going to file. We were trying to move fast." Aaron cut in. "Innovation isn't just about ideas. It's about execution. Maybe you're not cut out for this." But I wasn't backing down. Execution means nothing without ownership, without honesty. You tried to steal my work, and you failed because I was smart enough to protect it first. They didn't say much after that. The call ended with a cold silence that spoke volumes. For the first time, I realized something. Winning wasn't going to be about friends or favors. It was going to be about standing alone, armed with truth and unwilling to back down. I felt pain, deep pain, but beneath it was something stronger, a fire that no betrayal could extinguish. And now, with the truth as my shield, I was ready to fight for everything I'd built. After that call, everything changed. I stopped thinking of Liam and Aaron as friends or even competitors. They were opponents, and I was done playing on their field. I worked closely with my attorney to file a formal dispute with the patent office. It wasn't quick or easy. The legal language, the paperwork, the waiting, it felt like dragging my dreams through a cold, unfeeling machine. But every time frustration crept in, I reminded myself, this was my invention, my future. In the meantime, I started networking carefully, strategically. I connected with industry insiders, pitched my version of the technology, and quietly built a support network. I wanted the world to know the truth, but I also knew timing was everything. I couldn't rush it, or it would blow up in my face. Every step forward rebuilt my confidence. I wasn't just defending what I'd created. I was reclaiming control over my own story. The late nights became less about fear and more about purpose. There were setbacks, of course. Liam and Aaron pushed back, sending cease and desist letters, trying to intimidate partners, even whispering rumors to mutual contacts. But I stayed focused. I had proof. And when you have the truth on your side, lies fall apart faster than you think. One day, after months of waiting, my attorney called with news. The patent office had reviewed our submissions and sided with me. The priority date was confirmed. Liam and Aaron's application was rejected. I felt a rush, relief, yes, but also vindication. It wasn't just about the patent anymore. It was about justice, about standing up when others try to push you down. That victory changed everything. It reminded me that even when people you trust betray you, it's possible to rise again. That your own strength, your own voice, can be louder than their lies. And for the first time since this whole nightmare began, I felt like I was winning. When the dust finally settled, I sat back and took a deep breath. The patent was officially mine. The legal battles, the sleepless nights, the betrayals, they were all behind me. But the scars they left, those were still fresh. I had won, yes, but the victory didn't feel like a celebration. It was quieter, more personal. It was about reclaiming my dignity and proving to myself that I was worth fighting for, that my ideas mattered, that no one could erase me from my own story. I kept working on the invention, now with renewed passion but also cautious wisdom. I knew trust wasn't something I could give lightly anymore. I learned to protect my work, not just with patents and paperwork, but by being smarter about who I let into my world. Aaron and Liam, I cut ties. I didn't want that toxicity in my life anymore. The betrayal was a hard lesson in the harsh realities of the business world. Not everyone has your back, even when they say they do. But that pain also became fuel. I started sharing my story quietly with others, hoping it might help someone else who's been burned, betrayed, or overlooked. It wasn't about revenge. It was about resilience. Today, the invention is moving forward. I'm talking to investors who respect my work and my ownership. I'm building a team based on trust and transparency, and every step reminds me why I fought so hard. This journey taught me something important. Success isn't just about having a great idea. It's about protecting it, believing in it, and standing up for yourself when others try to take it away. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know one thing: no one will ever steal my story again. Because I'm the one who built it, I'm the one who fought for it, and I'm the one who will keep moving forward no matter what. Sometimes the hardest battles teach us the most valuable lessons. And for me, that lesson was simple: never let anyone else define your worth.